Welcome, everybody. So my name is Kevin Murphy. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Crop and Soil Sciences at Washington State University. My research lab group is the Sustainable Seed Systems Lab, and together with Washington State University Food Systems Program and Quinoa Lab, we welcome you to this very special session titled Spanning the Globe 3, where we will hear from my dear friends and colleagues, Dr. Cedric Habiyaremye and Dr. Moses Maliro, speak about their respective quinoa research and their related activities in Rwanda and Malawi. So Cedric is a research associate at Washington State University and also founder and CEO of Quinoa Hub Limited and co-founder of Farmwella SPC. He leads and facilitates quinoa research in Rwanda and assists in the quinoa variety and agronomic trial development in Malawi and Kenya. Originally from Rwanda, Cedric previously served as the youngest member of the Global Agricultural Task Force of the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. He also served as a fellow for the U.S. Borlaug in Global Food Security, the Borlaug Leadership Enhancement in Agriculture Program, and the Association for International Agricultural and Rural Development. He received his master's and PhD degrees in crop science from Washington State University, a BS in agricultural sciences with honors in irrigation and drainage, and an advanced diploma in soil and water management, both of which he received from the University of Rwanda College of Agriculture and Veterinary Medicine. Among many other awards, Cedric is a recipient of the 2018 World Hunger Leadership Award. Cedric first came to Washington State University as a new master's student 1 week before the first International Quinoa Symposium in 2013. And it was then, as we were organizing the session, that we first learned about what a positive, energetic, and hardworking individual Cedric is. And it was also there that we saw firsthand the first time the fantastic dancing skills that he brings to the table. One little known fact about Cedric is that he is also a really highly skilled whitewater river guide and has been on several of the most famous week-long rafting trips in the US. Cedric has been a highly valued, pioneering, and integral member of the Sustainable Seed System Lab ever since he arrived in 2013, and he will now share his talk titled Adaptability and Adoption of Quinoa in Rwanda.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for that wonderful introduction. And hello, everyone who tuned in. Today, I'm going to be talking about the adaptability and the adoption of quinoa in Rwanda. This is a project that started since 2015. I will walk you through, and please bear with me. So before we go deep into the whole project and the research about quinoa, let's first of all learn a little bit about Rwanda, its geography and some background. Rwanda is a small country situated in the Central East Africa with neighboring countries. In north, we have Uganda. In east, we have Tanzania. And in south, we have Burundi. And in the west, we have the Democratic Republic of Congo. Rwanda is a country that, like I said, it's small because it has, for people who know Washington State, Rwanda is Washington State is 7 times bigger than Rwanda. And however, the population of Rwanda is twice bigger than the population of Washington. So you can imagine how the population density is. And more than 80% of the population in Rwanda, they depend on agriculture for their jobs. So based on the size of Rwanda and the population size, it brings the population density to around 400 person per square kilometer. And this poses some limitation on the average land ownership of the average land size of the farmers, which brings it to a half hectare on average. And the farming is characterized by mixed farming and dominated by mostly small scale and crop intensification. In Rwanda, we have 3 growing seasons, which are groups, as you can see on the screen. Season A, that starts in September and ends in mid-February, and the season B that starts by February and ends with July. And then there is a season C that starts in June, and then it goes all the way to the end of October. The major crops, major food crops that are grown in Rwanda are plantains. Some people know in Rwanda call them banana pretty much, but plantains that cover 1/3 of the country's cultivated land and 2/3 of the small farmers' earnings. And beans are grown mostly on 2/3 of the farmers. So beans is highly consumed in Rwanda. As a matter of fact, actually, Rwanda is known as the #1 country in the world that consumes beans per capita, followed by Brazil and Argentina and some other countries. Interestingly, people can start imagining why people consume beans many times in Rwanda, or why people love beans. It's because beans is so far is one of the main crop that produce both short and long-term food availability. When they have beans on the field, they can't go hungry because they can go and snap the leaves and make soup from the beans leaves or salad and stuff like that. And then they can eat it as green beans as well as dry beans. So it's one of the crops that provide availability of food source at the moment you put it on the ground. So one of the main cashew crops are tea, coffee, and those they cover 4/5 of the country's agricultural export. And if we look on crop by area of occupation, we have tubers, they cover a big number, like 30%, and the plantains, legumes, they cover 25%, followed by plantains, 19%, as well as cereals that cover 17%. By cereal, it's a mixture of both either maize and some other grains, but maize is mainly grown there. And then coffee and tea, which are known as cash crops, they cover 5% of the area of occupation. As we continue with the background and the context of Rwanda, the country faces two major social challenges. One of them includes poverty, where around 62% population live in poverty. And another one that is very striking is the stunting and malnutrition. 39.7% of children under 5, they suffer from stunting. And this is a big problem because there is lifelong term consequences associated with stunting in early life. Those include, according to different studies, those include the diminished cognitive and physical development, reduced production capacity and poor health, and increase the risk of degenerative diseases such as diabetes. So basically, with this high level of stunting and malnutrition, this is something, is the biggest social challenges that need to be addressed to avoid actually future problems that can affect the population of the country. Because the country is highly dominated by youth, which is good on the other side when you look on the development aspect. But if all those youth have experienced the stunting or malnutrition or micronutrient deficiency, there is concerns for the future and the prosperity of the country in the long run because of those consequences associated to malnutrition and stunting, as mentioned above. You can look at the country, the map that shows the regional stunting distribution. You see in the north and the west, there is high level of stunting. Of course, in the rest of the country, the numbers are not good. When you see the middle one, this is the capital city, Kigali. That's why you can see maybe there is low rate of the numbers of people who are stunted, but you can see how the country is mainly aggravated or is kind of covered by those issues of stunting. So looking at those programs associated with that, in collaboration with the Sustainable Seed Systems Lab at Washington State University, we introduced quinoa. And some of you may wonder, why did we introduce quinoa in Rwanda? It was because quinoa has high nutritional value and complete protein crop that has all the 9 essential amino acids, and its potential to contribute to food and nutritional security could play a role in reducing those problems or addressing some of those issues that were mentioned above. It also has a wide ecological adaptation and the potential to contribute to climate change adaptation because it grows in a different range of soils and also altitude, which also it doesn't require a lot of input for production, which can be it can be an alternative source of income both locally and for export market, because of course it has received world attention since 2013 when the FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, named it the superfoods or the crop of the year because of its potential in addressing those issues. Then we conducted in the trials in Rwanda starting in 2015, where we tested 15 varieties of quinoa and 5 breeding lines, as well as 10 populations of quinoa. And this year, we are testing around 360 varieties of quinoa because we have seen, the research has shown that it did well. We will go on the results as I go, but since then we have been doing some progress in strengthening the research capacity based on the findings from the previous study. And in our study, we conducted the trials in 3 different agroclimatic zones of Rwanda. Those agroclimatic zones, as you see on the map, they were characterized by both topography and rainfall distribution. So these stars, the red stars, they show the research stations in 2015, when we initially introduced quinoa research in Rwanda. We started in the Central Plateau, which is in Igasabo district, Ndera, and then we did in Igashora. So we did those 2 locations in 2015. And starting 2016, we expanded. We did 3 locations. So those are the blue stars. Starting from the far, we see the category. It was like eastern lowland, which is highly characterized by low altitude that ranges between 850 to 1500 meters of elevation. And then the central plateau is characterized by somewhere between 1500 to 2000, and the highland region that is characterized by something between 2,500 and 3,000 of elevation. And looking at the rainfall distribution, the eastern lowland receive between 700 and 850 millimeters of the precipitation a year on average. And then the central plateau receives somewhere between 1,000 to 1,100. And again, the highland region, they receive a lot of precipitation that goes between 1,450 and 1,550. So we conducted this study to evaluate those varieties, 20 varieties, basically 15 varieties and 5 breeding lines, as well as the 10 population, to see how they will each respond in those 3 agroclimatic zones. The study we conducted, we didn't add any other inputs like fertilizer or anything. And we conducted the study on small plots that were the size of 4 by 1.2 meters. And we replicated them in 4 replications. Here is a summary of the results. Of course, some variety performed well and some didn't, and we were able to identify some potential varieties that comes as some of them are Caslea NL6 and the KQ74, and these 2 breeding line, the 3651 and 3664. So when we compare 2 locations, Musanze received on average high yield compared to Kirehe on around 900 kilograms per hectare. And again, Kirehe received on average 600 kilograms per hectare. So there was significant differences in the yield of those 2 locations. I want to mention that quinoa was completely new to Rwanda, and we started with no prior knowledge of how the best it can grow and what challenge we would face. However, as we evolved, we came to ameliorate with our research, and the results were getting better and better. Looking on the differences, because of those locations, we conducted a study basically looking on the agronomic study, research or data. We collected the data on emergence rate and days to flowering, days to maturity, and plant health, as well as yield. But the yield data, you saw them in the previous slides, but looking on these other data like emergence rates, we realized that there was no differences in emergence rate in those 2 locations. However, there was difference in days to flowering and days to maturity, as well as plant height. And our research study across all the years in the location, the grain yield was positively correlated with the percentage emergence, and also negatively correlated with days to maturity and positively correlated with the plant height of the plant, the crops. So as a conclusion to this section of the research, we realized that Musan's environment, they promote greater yield than Kirehe. And these initial results that suggest that this difference is because of the moisture differences, because Musans receives during those period of time on average 550 millimeters or more of precipitation per year than Kirehe, and their mean differences were their mean temperatures were different because Kirehe received 22 degrees Celsius than Musanze that received 14 degrees Celsius on average during the growing season. And we identified the varieties like Caslea, NL6, and as well as they were higher yielding varieties in Musanze with an average of 1,800 kilograms per hectares and respectively. And then the breeding line of quinoa, that the 39/51 was the highest yielding variety in Kirehe with an average of 1,259 kilograms per hectare. So overall, quinoa did well in Rwanda, and we continue to strengthen our research. And then introducing a new crop like that, the biggest challenge we had was how are people going to perceive this crop? Are they going to accept it? Are they going to embrace it? So the biggest challenge was then because we realized that it can be adapted, can be grown there, but is it going to be adopted? Are people going to be able to grow it and eat it? So that's why the research study were conducted in the communities where farmers could visit, and they were curious to see the crops, and they would ask questions, and those potentially identified varieties were given to farmers, and we started a program we call Model Farmers, or Quinoa Model Farmers. That started in 2017. So the Quinoa Model Farmers, when it started, in these yellow stars, you will see these yellow stars are 12, the big ones. These are the initial model farmers we started. Someone may think, I don't know why we chose 12. Some may think maybe there are those like 12 disciples of Jesus, but I don't know. It's the number that happened like that. And we trained them, we followed with them how to grow quinoa, because initially they were interested in growing it, but we provide them their technical support. And those farmers, because of their interest, they started training their peers. And these small yellow cycles, those are like example of the secondary model farmers delivered from or who were influenced by our initial model farmers in the community. And we were so fascinated with the level of adoption, because as you can see, these farmers, they multiplied a lot. They started reaching out to their neighbors and giving them, telling them about what they liked about quinoa and why they should maybe try it in their own. So then we started receiving a lot of requests, numbers of people interested in growing quinoa. And interesting enough, we thought it would be hard for us to make that move to inform people about growing it, but the farmers themselves, they took initiative and they started reaching out to their colleagues. And one of them actually, who I credit this success, I mean the expansion of this, I would credit this to my mother, because she's the one who did a great job of the expansion and reaching out to the farmers to grow it, because she loved it, to the fact that she was enjoying it, making different dishes or cooking it in different ways. And then she would invite her colleagues to come, and they would love it, and they ask her seeds to grow, and then she'll give them away, to the point always I would receive a call, I ran out of seeds, can you send me more? And my great friend Olivier, who is an integral part of this study and this quinoa program in Rwanda as whole, who was always there with her, and we managed to reach out to a lot of farmers, and now we have a network of farmers that are around 515 who are growing quinoa in Rwanda. So we give trainings to those farmers, and those were the one to go train their friends. And the number of farmers we have, like I said, around 515 now. And farmers we gave them those potential varieties, but again, those varieties were also, some of them include the varieties farmers loved than the other ones. And that one also includes one variety called, it's a breeding line, 3946, because it's red leaves. Farmers loved it because it's like amaranth that is highly consumed in Rwanda. And those variety, if you can see on the list here, the 39 and 51 and the 3964, they are considered the potential varieties to be released for Rwanda. That's the next step we are working on. And looking on the consumption of the quinoa, in Rwanda, farmers, they start being creative around different dishes. The grains, they could make flour and make porridge, or make what is highly known in Rwanda as ubugari, and they would also make the porridge that is known as igikoma. But again, they started making some, like for example, my mother, she make fermented drinks of, she malt quinoa and make different drinks, like that is known traditionally in Rwanda as ikigage or umusururu. And the farmers, again, they make different dishes in cooking. And interestingly, they loved the quinoa leaves. You can see on the picture, these leaves how fresh and beautiful looking, and they eat them a lot. And quinoa now, if you remember the story I talked about the beans were normally known for providing, and are still known for providing short and long-term food availability, because they are consumed only during the course of the growth. And quinoa is playing the same role, because farmers, when they're growing quinoa on the field, they still manage to go snap the leaves and they eat them. They make soup or salad, and they make different leaf-based dishes, and they are loving it. Some of them are calling it a good additive or added value to the role the beans are playing in the society. So they enjoy the delicious and nutritious grains, but again, they also enjoy the delicious, nutritious leaves of the quinoa. And they are loving it on the community to a different degree. And that's why this is something that brings me joy, because I remember in 1997, there's the time in Rwanda we were hit by the famine. And I remember my family, we survived on the leaves of the beans. And seeing quinoa playing this role, it brings me joy, because now, based on some of the study we conducted, interviews, farmers are like, now I can't go hungry if I know that I have quinoa in the field, or I have because I can eat the grains, and later on I can eat when I can eat the leaves when the grains are not ready, and I will not starve. And those are stories that warms my heart. And again, quinoa, the introduction of quinoa in Rwanda is not to replace the existing crops, but is to be incorporated in the existing farming systems to increase the crop diversity and again, the nutritional diversity. And we are working with the different institutions that include foods, nutritious food, and they are using some of the quinoa to make those products. Before I get to the end, this shows that the result of this study underscore the needs to continue evaluate quinoa cultivars to identify the genotypes adapted to the specific agroecological zones of Rwanda and the growing season. And there is a need for training of farmers on quinoa production, post-harvest, and handling and cooking. And so far, we have a big number of requests and interest from farmers who want to grow quinoa. And we will do everything possible to make this crop, superfood, reach every individual, every farmer in Rwanda, because those who start growing it, they understand its importance, and we do understand the importance of this crop, and we do make it possible to reach and to address the issue of micronutrient deficiency and stunting. And because I believe that proper nutrition drives resiliency, stability, and prosperity. And with the Rwandan government initiative, and for us adding this value, we will be able to reach this goal. In closing, I would like to thank you very much for your kind attention. And if you have questions, please ask them. I will be happy to address them. And you can also find out more about our research by following the Sustainable Seed Systems Lab, the social media or the website, or you can also follow me myself. I like to share most about my research on my social medias or my website at cedricnotes.com. And thank you again for your kind attention, and great honor to be here on this second International Quinoa Research Symposium. Thank you.